The CCTV footage was crystal clear at 11:47 p.m. My wife Ivy sneaking into our workshop with a man whose face I couldn't quite make out in the shadows. 23 years of marriage, and this is what it came to. I sat in my home office, the blue glow of the security monitor casting shadows across my weathered face. The timestamp burned into my retinas as I watched my world crumble in high definition. Raymond Selkirk, 43, owner of Selkirk Reclaimed Metals, watching his wife betray everything we'd built together. I downloaded the footage to 3 separate drives, then burned the original. Let her think the cameras malfunctioned. I had bigger plans brewing. Tuesday morning came like any other. Ivy hummed in the kitchen, making coffee with the same smile she'd worn for 2 decades. Our kids sat around the breakfast table. Noah, 17, my loyal shadow who helped at the scrapyard every weekend. Leona, 15, entitled and sharp-tongued, always pushing boundaries. And Cam, 12, quiet but observant. The peacekeeper. "Dad, can you drive me to soccer practice?" Leona asked without looking up from her phone. "Your mother can handle it. I've got inventory to finish." Ivy glanced at me, something flickering in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? Hard to tell with a woman who'd perfected deception. "Raymond, you've been working too much lately. Maybe take a break this weekend?" I smiled. The same smile I'd given her every morning for 23 years. "Can't rest when business is good, honey." But business wasn't the only thing on my mind. Over the next week, I implemented my plan with surgical precision. First, I acquired a second phone, cash purchase untraceable. Next, I gained access to Ivy's Apple ID through our shared computer. The family tracker showed her every movement, every location, every lie. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Text messages with Elliot Kane, her former business partner from 15 years ago. The same Elliot who'd helped finance our kitchen renovation. The same Elliot who'd been sniffing around my wife while I worked 16-hour days building our fortune. "Baby, can't wait to see you Thursday." Same place as always. "Miss you too. Ray's working late again. Story of my life." Right? 23 years of working late to provide for this family, and she was using it as an excuse to screw her ex-partner. But the real bombshell came when I cross-referenced dates. Their message history went back 2 years, but something nagged at me. I remembered Elliot's involvement in our lives, his convenient appearances at family gatherings, his generous loans that helped us through tough times. I ordered DNA tests for all 3 kids. The results arrived on a Thursday. I opened them in my office at the scrapyard, surrounded by twisted metal and broken dreams, fitting ambiance for what I was about to learn. Noah, 99.97% match. My son, Leona, not a match. Cam, not a match. 2 of my 3 children weren't mine. 15 years of soccer games, parent-teacher conferences, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, all built on lies. I stared at the papers until the words blurred. My hands shook with rage so pure it felt like electricity coursing through my veins. That evening, I installed audio recording devices throughout the house. If Ivy wanted to play games, I'd make sure I held all the cards. Sunday dinner at my mother-in-law Velma's house. Ivy sat beside me, playing the perfect wife, while Velma fussed over the grandchildren she probably knew weren't mine. "Raymond, you look tired," Velma said, serving pot roast. "Maybe you should take a vacation." "Can't afford to stop now. Business is booming." Ivy squeezed my hand. "He works so hard for us, Mom." I wanted to laugh, or vomit. Instead, I smiled and ate my dinner while recording every word through the device in my shirt pocket. Later, as we helped clear dishes, I mentioned casually, "Velma, remember when Elliot helped us with the kitchen renovation? That was generous of him." Velma's face went pale. She glanced at Ivy, who had frozen mid-step. "Oh, yes, Elliot's always been helpful." "Too helpful, if you ask me," I said, watching both women squirm. "Almost like he's part of the family." "Raymond, what's that supposed to mean?" Ivy's voice carried a warning edge. "Nothing, honey. Just grateful for friends like Elliot." But Velma cracked first. After a few drinks, she pulled me aside. "Raymond, I need to tell you something. About Elliot and Ivy." "What about them?" Tears filled her eyes. "They were together before you met. And she was pregnant when you married her. Leona, she's Elliot's daughter." Velma nodded, sobbing. "Ivy made me promise never to tell. She said you'd leave if you knew. You were always just supposed to be a father figure, not a real dad." The words hung in the air like poison gas. 23 years of my life, reduced to a convenient lie. I patted Velma's shoulder gently. "Thank you for telling me the truth. Finally." That night, I sat in my truck outside our house, staring at the windows glowing warm and yellow. Inside was everything I'd worked for, everything I'd sacrificed for, everything that wasn't really mine. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Tim, it's Raymond Selkirk. I need to see you first thing Monday morning. It's about my marriage. Divorce? Among other things. I'll explain everything when I see you. By Monday morning, I had a plan that would make Sun Tzu proud. Tim Morrison had been handling legal work for Selkirk Reclaimed Metals for 8 years. A sharp mind in a rumpled suit, he specialized in business law but had seen his share of messy divorces. Raymond, what you're describing is paternity fraud. In this state, you might have grounds to recover child support payments. I don't want money back, Tim. I want justice. I spread the DNA tests, photographs, and recorded conversations across his desk like playing cards. Here's what I need. First, an injunction preventing Ivy from transferring any assets. She's been moving money into accounts I don't know about. Tim raised an eyebrow. How do you know that? Because I've been tracking every transaction for 6 months. She thinks she's clever, but she forgot I built this business from nothing. I know how to read financial patterns. I handed him a flash drive. Bank records, credit card statements, everything. She's been financing her affair with my money. This is thorough. I'm just getting started. Second, I want restraining orders against both Ivy and Elliot. On what grounds? I played the audio recording from Sunday dinner. Velma's confession came through crystal clear. Emotional distress, fraud, alienation of affection, whatever sticks. Tim leaned back in his chair. Raymond, I have to ask, what's your endgame here? Complete destruction. I want them to understand what it feels like to lose everything you've worked for. And the children? Noah's my son. He stays with me. The other two, I shrugged. They have a biological father. Let him support them. Tim made notes on his legal pad. This will get ugly. It already is ugly. I'm just evening the score. By Wednesday, the trap was set. Ivy had no idea what was coming. I arranged for the papers to be served at the community center during Leona's soccer tournament. Maximum embarrassment, maximum witnesses. Ivy stood on the sidelines with other parents, cheering for a daughter who wasn't mine, when the process server approached. Are you Ivy Marie Selkirk? Yes? You've been served. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, her face cycling through confusion, shock, and terror as she read. Restraining order, injunction freezing all accounts, divorce petition citing paternity fraud. The other parents stared as Ivy collapsed onto the bleachers. Mom, what's wrong? Leona ran over, still in her soccer uniform. Your father, he knows. I watched from my truck across the parking lot, engine running, sunglasses hiding my satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. My phone buzzed, text from Ivy. We need to talk, please. I ignored it. 20 minutes later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Raymond, please, I can explain everything. Just come home and let me explain. Delete. At 6 p.m., I finally went home. The house felt different now, contaminated by years of lies. Ivy sat at the kitchen table, divorce papers spread before her like tarot cards predicting doom. How long have you known? She asked without looking up. About the affair? 6 months. About the kids? 1 week. And you said nothing? I was gathering evidence. You taught me well, Ivy. Never reveal your hand until you're ready to play it. She finally looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Raymond, I love you. No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love the house, the cars, the lifestyle. But me? You've been damning other man for years. It's not like that. Then explain it. Make me understand how the woman I married, the mother of my children, could betray everything we built together. Ivy took a shuddering breath. Elliot and I, we have history. Before you and I met, we were together. When I found out I was pregnant with Leona, he ran, just disappeared. I was alone, scared, and you were so kind to me, so patient. So you used me. No, I fell in love with you, real love. But when Elliot came back into our lives, offering to help with the renovation, old feelings resurfaced. And Cam? She looked down at her hands. After the renovation, Elliot and I started seeing each other again. It was supposed to be just physical, but then I got pregnant. And you let me believe he was mine. I hoped he was. The timing. It could have been either of you. I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Either of us. Listen to yourself, Ivy. You're talking about my son like he's a lottery ticket. Raymond, please. We can work through this. I'll end things with Elliot. We can go to counseling. Start over. Start over? I stood up, pulling the DNA results from my jacket. These say otherwise. 2 of the 3 children I've raised, loved, and sacrificed for aren't mine. 23 years of my life built on lies. I threw the papers on the table. Ivy stared at them like they might spontaneously combust. You want to know the really funny part? I continued. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. Elliot's been bragging to his friends about his side family, how he's got 2 kids with a married woman and the husband's too stupid to figure it out. Ivy's face went white. That's not... He wouldn't... Wouldn't what? Lie? Cheat? Manipulate? Sound familiar? I walked to the door, then turned back. By the way, the restraining order means you can't contact me directly. All communication goes through lawyers now. And Ivy, you've got 48 hours to move out. This is my house, too. Actually, it's not. Check the deed. It's in my parents' name. They're letting us live here rent-free, or rather, they were letting us. You're no longer welcome. I left her sitting at the table, surrounded by the wreckage of her lies. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in legal warfare. My lawyer filed motions faster than Ivy could respond. Asset freeze, custody hearing, paternity fraud claims, alienation of affection lawsuit against Elliot. Elliot tried to reach out through mutual friends, wanting to talk like men. I had my lawyer send him a simple message. Any further contact will result in maltreatment charges. The restraining order was just the beginning. I'd hired a forensic accountant who discovered Ivy had been siphoning money from our joint accounts for 2 years. Small amounts, cleverly hidden, but it added up to nearly $40,000. She's been funding the affair with marital assets, Tim explained during our Thursday meeting. That's a violation of fiduciary duty. We can use this. What about Elliot's business? Kane Construction is highly leveraged. He's been using his company credit to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, even jewelry for your wife. If his wife finds out and files for divorce, it could trigger loan defaults. His wife doesn't know. Not yet, but she might, if someone sent her copies of these receipts. I smiled. That would be a shame. By Friday, Elliot's marriage was over. His wife, Sarah, filed for divorce and demanded an emergency audit of their finances. By Monday, 3 of his major contractors had canceled projects, spooked by the scandal. But I wasn't finished. The hardest part was explaining to Noah why his mother no longer lived with us. At 17, he was old enough to understand betrayal, but young enough to still believe in fairness. Dad, are you sure about this? Maybe Mom just made a mistake. We sat in my office at the scrapyard, surrounded by the organized chaos of twisted metal and salvaged dreams. Noah, some mistakes you can forgive. Your mother didn't make a mistake. She made choices over and over for 15 years. But what about Leona and Cam? They're still our family. I handed him the DNA results. Are they... Noah read them twice, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and hurt. She lied to us. To all of us. Yes. And their real father is Mr. Kane? The guy who helped with the kitchen? Yes. Noah crumpled the papers in his fist. I remember him being around a lot when I was little, always helping Mom with projects while you were at work. He was helping her with more than projects. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 23 years of deception settling between us. What happens now? Noah asked. Now you choose. You can live with me and help run this business, or you can go with your mother and try to rebuild a relationship built on lies. That's not really a choice, is it? No, son. It's not. Leona's reaction was volcanic. She screamed, threw things, accused me of destroying the family out of jealousy and spite. You're just mad because Mom found someone better. Better! You mean the man who abandoned you when you were conceived, then snuck around behind my back for 15 years? At least he doesn't smell like motor oil and rust. I looked at this 15-year-old girl I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for, and saw nothing of myself in her features. She had Elliot's eyes, his stubborn chin, his casual cruelty. You're right, Leona, I'm not your father. Your real father is waiting for you at the motel on Highway 9. Maybe he'll smell better. She ran from the room crying. I felt nothing. Cam, 12 and wise beyond his years, simply asked, Does this mean you won't love me anymore? That question broke something inside me. I knelt down to his level, looking into eyes that were definitely not mine. Cam, I raised you from a baby. I taught you to ride a bike, helped with homework, cheered at your baseball games. You're not my biological son, but you'll always be my boy if you want to be. But I have to choose, don't I? Between you and Mom? Yes. What if I choose wrong? There is no wrong choice, buddy, just different paths. He hugged me tight, and I wondered if this would be the last time. Small towns thrive on gossip, and our drama provided enough fuel for months of speculation. The story spread like wildfire. Successful businessman discovers wife's 15-year affair. 2 kids aren't his. Family implodes in spectacular fashion. At first, sympathy ran my way. Men nodded knowingly at the hardware store. Women whispered supportively at the grocery store. Everyone agreed Ivy had crossed a line. But then Ivy played her trump card. She went to Pastor Williams at First Baptist, where we'd been members for 12 years. Tears streaming, voice breaking, she confessed her sins and begged for guidance. Within days, half the congregation was praying for our broken family and encouraging forgiveness. Raymond, Pastor Williams called me on a Tuesday evening. Ivy came to see me. She's truly repentant. Perhaps you should consider counseling for the children's sake. Pastor, with respect, I've already forgiven her. I've forgiven her right out of my life. That's not forgiveness, son. That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing, the pastor sighed. What about turning the other cheek? I did, for 15 years. Now I'm all out of cheeks to turn. But the campaign was working. People who'd initially supported me began to waver. Ivy was painted as a repentant sinner seeking redemption, while I became the cold-hearted husband who couldn't forgive. I didn't care. Let them gossip. I had bigger plans. Elliot's construction business was hemorrhaging money. His wife's divorce attorney had frozen accounts, seized equipment, and filed liens against ongoing projects. But I wanted more than his financial collapse. I wanted his complete destruction. Through a shell company, I bought the debt on 3 of his major projects. Perfectly legal, completely anonymous. When the projects inevitably went over budget due to his marital chaos, I called in the loans. Elliot was forced to sell his equipment at auction to cover debts. I bought most of it through intermediaries, then resold it to his competitors at below-market prices. Within 6 months, Kane Construction went from $1 million operation to bankruptcy court. But the masterstroke came when I discovered Elliot had been claiming tax deductions for business expenses that were actually affair-related. Hotel rooms, dinners, even jewelry for Ivy, all written off as client entertainment. Anonymous tip to the IRS. Let them sort it out. By Christmas, Elliot owed the government $180,000 in back taxes and penalties. His house went into foreclosure. His truck was repossessed. The man who'd helped himself to my wife and claimed my children was reduced to living in a studio apartment and working construction day labor. I felt nothing but satisfaction. Family court in our county was presided over by Judge Morrison. No relation to my lawyer, thankfully. A stern woman in her 50s who'd seen every form of family dysfunction imaginable. Ivy's attorney argued for shared custody, claiming the children needed both parents despite the paternity issues. Your Honor, my lawyer countered, my client has DNA evidence proving 2 of the 3 children are not his biological offspring. The mother has committed paternity fraud spanning 15 years. Nevertheless, Ivy's lawyer shot back, Mr. Selkirk has acted as these children's father their entire lives. You can't simply sever those relationships overnight. Judge Morrison studied the DNA results, financial records, and recorded conversations I'd provided. This is one of the most egregious cases of marital deception I've encountered, she finally said. Mrs. Selkirk, you've defrauded your husband financially, emotionally, and biologically for over a decade. Ivy stood beside her lawyer, mascara streaking down her cheeks, the picture of remorse. However, the judge continued, the children's best interest must be considered. Mr. Selkirk, are you prepared to continue supporting Leona and Cam despite the paternity results? No, Your Honor. Their biological father should assume that responsibility. And if he's unable or unwilling, then they become wards of the state. I won't be manipulated into supporting another man's children while he's been laughing behind my back for 15 years. The courtroom fell silent. Even Judge Morrison looked shocked by my coldness. Mr. Selkirk, these children have known no other father. Surely you have some emotional attachment? I had emotional attachment to my wife too, Your Honor. Look how that turned out. In the end, I won. Full custody of Noah, who was biologically mine. Ivy got custody of Leona and Cam with no child support from me. Their biological father could step up or watch them struggle. It was everything I'd wanted, so why did victory taste like ashes? 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Ivy showed up at my office. She'd lost weight, her once perfect appearance now haggard and desperate. "Raymond, we need to talk. We need to do nothing. You're trespassing. Please." It's about Cam. Despite everything, that boy still held a piece of my heart. "What about him?" "He's in the hospital. Appendicitis. The surgery went fine, but he keeps asking for you." I stared at this woman who'd destroyed my life, holding my heart hostage with the suffering of a child who wasn't mine but felt like mine. "Where's his father?" "Elliot's in jail. Tax evasion. He can't visit." Of course he was. I'd made sure the IRS prosecution moved quickly. "The hospital bills I can't afford the insurance copay. I'm working 2 jobs just to keep us in the apartment." "Not my problem." "Raymond, please. He's just a little boy. He doesn't understand why you've abandoned him." That hit harder than I'd expected. I'd been so focused on punishing Ivy and Elliot that I'd forgotten Cam was an innocent sufferer in all of this. "I haven't abandoned anyone. I'm simply refusing to be manipulated by lies anymore." "He wasn't a lie. Your love for him, his love for you, that was real, built on deception. Does that make it less real?" I looked at this broken woman before me, seeing glimpses of the girl I'd fallen in love with 24 years ago, before the lies, before the betrayal, before everything turned to ash. "I'll pay the hospital bill," I said finally, "but this doesn't change anything between us." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm not doing it for you." By the 1-year anniversary of my discovery, the Scorched Earth campaign was complete. Elliot was in federal prison, his business destroyed, his reputation ruined. Ivy worked 2 jobs to support children who barely respected her, living in a cramped apartment that smelled like defeat. Noah thrived working beside me at the scrapyard, learning the business that would someday be his. At 18, he had the focused intensity I'd once possessed, before life taught me the value of revenge. "Dad, don't you ever feel bad about what happened to Mr. Kane? We were breaking down a shipment of copper wire, the eternal rhythm of salvage and restoration. Do you feel bad when you crush a cockroach? That's different, is it?" Elliot Kane scuttled around in the dark, feeding off what I'd built, reproducing behind my back. The only difference between him and a cockroach is cockroaches don't pretend to be your friend while they're infesting your house. Noah considered this while coiling copper into neat bundles. "What about Mom? Do you ever miss her?" That was harder to answer. Did I miss the woman I'd married, or the illusion of her I'd carried for 23 years? I miss who I thought she was, but that person never existed. And Leona and Cam? They're not my responsibility anymore. But that wasn't entirely true. Late at night, when the yard was quiet and the weight of solitude pressed down, I wondered about Cam's baseball games, Leona's soccer tournaments. I wondered if they missed the father who wasn't their father, if they understood why I'd walked away. The wondering kept me awake more than I cared to admit. 18 months after the divorce, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper with a message that stopped my heart. "Round 2. Let's see who wins this time." Attached was an ultrasound photo. Ivy was pregnant. I stared at the image, trying to process what this meant. Another child? After everything that had happened, she was bringing another life into this mess? My phone rang. Noah calling from college. He'd graduated early and started business school on a full scholarship I'd arranged. "Dad, I just got a weird call from Mom. She's pregnant?" "Apparently." Do you think it's yours?" "Noah, I haven't spoken to your mother in over a year. Unless it's the second coming, I'm not the father." "Then who?" "Good question." Elliot was in federal prison, serving 18 months for tax evasion. Unless conjugal visits were more liberal than I'd imagined, he wasn't responsible either. "Dad, she wants to meet. Says she has something important to tell you." The answer is no. But what if she's in trouble? What if someone's forcing her? I almost laughed. Even now, after everything, Noah still believed in rescue fantasies, still believed broken people could be saved. "Your mother made her choices, son. She's not my problem anymore." But the ultrasound photo sat on my desk like an accusation. Another child, another innocent sufferer in the endless cycle of deception and revenge. Against my better judgment, I found myself caring. I agreed to meet Ivy at the diner where we'd had our first date 24 years earlier. Neutral ground, public place, witnesses if things went sideways. She looked older than her 41 years, worn down by 18 months of single motherhood and financial struggle. But there was something else in her eyes, a desperation I hadn't seen before. Thank you for coming. You have 10 minutes. Talk. She slid a manila envelope across the table. The baby isn't Elliot's. I assumed as much since he's been in prison for 6 months. It's not yours either. Also assumed. Raymond, I need your help. I opened the envelope. Inside were photographs that made my blood run cold. Ivy with a man I didn't recognize, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. The photos showed them together at a hotel, in a car, entering what looked like a safe house. Who is he? Marcus Webb. He runs operations for some very dangerous people. Operations? Money laundering mostly, some pills. I met him at my second job. I was doing bookkeeping for his restaurant. The pieces clicked into place. You were laundering money. I needed the extra income. After the divorce, I could barely make rent. Marcus offered me good money to clean up his books, make everything look legitimate. And you ended up in bed with him. She looked down at her hands. It wasn't supposed to happen, but he was attentive, made me feel wanted again. After everything that happened with us, I needed to feel desired. So what's the problem? I found out what he really does. It's not just money laundering, Raymond. He's involved with people who hurt children. Trafficking. The diner suddenly felt too small, too close. And you got pregnant by a child trafficker? I tried to leave when I found out, but he won't let me go. Says I know too much. The baby, he wants to keep it as insurance. Insurance against what? Against me going to the police? I leaned back in the booth, processing this nightmare. My ex-wife, mother of my children, mixed up with criminals who trafficked kids. What do you want from me? Help me disappear. You have resources, connections. I need to get away from him before this baby is born. And why would I do that? Because despite everything, you're a good man. And because Cam asks about you every day. She played the Cam card like she always did, knowing it was my weakness. Where is he now? And Leona? Safe. They're staying with my sister in Ohio until I figure this out. And Marcus doesn't know where they are? Not yet, but he's getting suspicious, asking questions. I studied this woman who'd destroyed my life, now asking me to save hers. The irony was almost poetic. You realize this is your mess to clean up. I know, but I can't do it alone. You should have thought about that before you got involved with criminals. Raymond, please, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for this baby. An innocent child who doesn't deserve to be born into this. Another innocent sufferer in the endless cycle of poor choices and unintended consequences. What exactly are you proposing? Help me set up new identities. You know people in the business world who deal with complicated situations. I'll disappear, have the baby somewhere safe, and never contact you again. And if I say no, then Marcus Webb becomes very interested in the man who destroyed Elliot Kane's life. He might start asking questions about your business methods, your connections. Men like Marcus don't appreciate competition in the revenge business. She was threatening me. Even now, asking for help, she was trying to manipulate me. You haven't changed at all, have you? I'm desperate, Raymond. Desperate people do desperate things. I finished my coffee, considering options. I could walk away, let her face the consequences of her choices, or I could help her disappear, finally ending our toxic connection forever. I'll help you, I said finally, but not for you, for the baby. And for Cam and Leona, who don't deserve to have their lives destroyed by your poor choices. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, there are conditions. Anything. First, you disappear completely. New identity, new life, no contact with anyone from your past, including the kids. But Cam will be better off thinking you're dead than knowing you're hiding from child traffickers. Same with Leona. She winced but nodded. Second, I'm arranging the details. You follow my plan exactly. No deviations, no second guessing. Okay. Third, after this is over, we're done. Forever. You don't exist to me, and I don't exist to you. I understand. I stood up, throwing money on the table for coffee I could barely taste. Be ready to leave tomorrow night. Bring nothing but the clothes you're wearing. Everything else stays behind. Raymond? What? I'm sorry. For everything. I know it doesn't matter now, but I needed to say it. I looked at her one last time, this woman who'd given me the best and worst years of my life. Sorry doesn't fix anything, Ivy, but maybe this will. 6 months later, I received a postcard from Portland with no return address. Just a picture of a baby's hand and 2 words. Thank you. Ivy was gone, dissolved into whatever new identity I'd arranged for her. The child would grow up never knowing his or her true parentage, never understanding the violence and deception that preceded their birth. Cam and Leona believed their mother had died in a car accident while visiting friends. I attended the memorial service, watching two children mourn a woman who'd abandoned them to save herself. After the service, Cam approached me. "Mr. Selkirk, could I come live with you and Noah? I know I'm not really your son, but..." I looked down at this 12-year-old boy who'd done nothing wrong except be born to the wrong parents at the wrong time. "Pack your things, son. You're coming home." Leona stayed with her aunt in Ohio, choosing distance over reconciliation. I couldn't blame her. Some wounds cut too deep for healing. Noah graduated business school and took over daily operations of Selkirk Reclaimed Metals. At 21, he showed the same ruthless focus that had built our fortune, tempered by compassion I'd lost somewhere along the way. As for me, I learned that revenge is like scrap metal. You can hammer it into any shape you want, but it never becomes anything beautiful. The satisfaction I'd felt watching my enemies fall apart faded quickly, leaving only emptiness where my family used to be. But maybe that was enough. Maybe knowing I'd protected what mattered, Noah, Cam, even an unborn child, was worth the cost of becoming the villain in my own story. Late at night, when the scrapyard was quiet and the weight of my choices pressed down like accumulated rust, I sometimes wondered if I'd done the right thing, if there had been another way, a path that didn't require destroying everything I'd once loved. But then I'd remember the CCTV footage, the DNA tests, the 23 years of lies, and I knew the truth. Some betrayals are so complete, so devastating, that they can only be answered with total war. I'd won that war. The question was whether the victory had been worth the cost. Only time would tell.